So I fired myself and we hit $700,000 a month in our agency. Why? Because I hired these 5 killers and let them run the agency for me. No burnout, no 100-hour weeks, just scale. So if you want that in your agency, just simply copy this. So the first essential role is what you call a house manager. Now, at this point, if you're doing above 6 figures a year, I highly recommend this. I've had my house manager now for, I think, over 5 or 6 years. I actually hired my mother-in-law to do this for me, so there was that trust and family connection there. But essentially what she does and what this role does is automate everything personally to do with house chores. Now, so much of you right now are probably spending 20, 30 hours a week on things like cooking, on things like ironing. You know, you want to look smart, I get it, right? But it takes time. On things like washing up, taking the bins out, you know, house maintenance. Let's say, you know, I don't know, you need to get your gutters done or you're getting your driveway done. All of these things take so much time, but second to that, they take, and most importantly, I would say, they take up mental bandwidth, okay? And this is the biggest thing that you get back from this role. Now, you can honestly get a pretty decent house manager. Obviously, depending on where you live, you could probably get a decent house manager for not far off of minimum wage, which is going to be, you know, an easy hire. You know, if you're somebody that charges or ranks your hourly rate at, say, you know, 100, 500, £1,000 an hour, you're essentially, you know, paying somebody here at minimum wage to do those jobs for you. You're buying yourself back so much extra time and money, which you can then put into work and into your business. So if you're at 6 figures a year right now and you don't have this role, you probably wouldn't assume that you could do this. This is something that, you know, celebrities have, or you need to be making millions of dollars a year in order to afford this. My argument is, you know, I was not making millions of dollars a year when I got and made this hire, and I now do make millions of dollars a year, and that is because of the time a hire like this saves me. So house manager, all of your personal tasks. Basically, a nice little technique for you is what I call ESAD, which is eliminate, systemize, automate, and delegate, okay? A lot of people, you know, I teach this a lot to my students to do on a business setting. So, you know, you make a list of every single thing that you do in the business and you decide that you're either going to eliminate it, systemize it, automate, or delegate it. I actually think you should do this personally, okay? So I want you to do a personal time audit. And this is strictly for things that you do outside of work, okay? So how many hours a week are you spending washing up, cleaning, cooking? How many hours a week are you spending on home maintenance tasks? Things like that. Translate that into $1 per hour. If hiring this person is cheaper than that $1 per hour amount, then it's worth your time to do so, okay? This role changed my life and I highly recommend it for you. So number 2, the second hire here is a head of ops / head of service delivery. Apologies about my handwriting, by the way, in advance. Head of ops / head of service delivery. For most of you right now, tell me if this seems familiar. Every single headache or problem in the business comes your way. It's basically like drinking from a fire hose of problems, of headaches. These headaches come from clients. They also come from team members. Not only does it take up so much time, it prevents any kind of deep work because you can't, as soon as you go to sit down to crack on with something, you get a message, problem, you need to jump on it, okay? This means that you, okay, are the constraint, okay? You are the constraint. You are the bottleneck. If this is you right now, you are the final call of defense for all issues, all problems, everything that seems to be coming your way. And because of that, you feel like you can't make solid progress because as soon as you sit down to work on the business, you pull back into the business. You need some kind of person in a head of operations or leadership position, and their goal is very, very simple. Their job is to basically take all of this, first of all, people management, okay? People management. They're going to take all of the people management off your plate. They're also going to take client oversight off your plate. At the end of the day, if you've run a Facebook ad agency and you've got a media buyer or somebody, an account manager working on the account for a client, they should be sorting those problems and owning that. They should be autonomous in their role, but obviously they're going to have questions, issues, they're going to want support. And when that happens, that client oversight also should be going to a leader that isn't you. The number one goal of this, by the way, is to essentially pull you out of the day-to-day weeds so you can work, I don't know what this is, you can work on the business, not in the business, okay? You need to be on the business, not in the business. Again, if you're finding that, especially if you do that little time audit of yourself, that you're spending serious amounts of time on that, then you need to do this. And what's really powerful with this role specifically is not only does it save you the time to work on more higher leverage tasks, it also, similar to point number one, buys you back that mental bandwidth so you can ultimately make better decisions, okay? What this does is it gives you leverage, okay? Which is really, really key. So role number 3 is you want a data person, okay? An admin data person. So many people, and one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my agency journey is I made all of my decisions based off of emotion, gut feeling, and not data. At the end of the day, every decision you should make in the business should be a data-driven decision. But the only way you can do that is by having accurate data. You can find somebody, a VA, an admin person with just a bit of data experience that can come and ensure that all times you have accurate and up-to-date data. This person can, input into spreadsheets. They keep it up to date at all times. And essentially what you want to essentially do is build out what we call a management dashboard, okay? And this management dashboard includes all of the key metrics for each department, for each individual contributor and each person in the business to show the lifeblood and the health of the company. And you want to hire somebody whose sole job is to make sure the data input into that is accurate and up to date at all times, allowing you to go on and make the best possible decisions. Because look, as you progress further and as you scale, one of the biggest issues that I actually see with people isn't that they're not working hard enough anymore. It's essentially that they're just not being strategic and they're not being smart enough, okay? So what they're doing is they're rushing into decisions. Let's say this is the goal down here, okay? You've got person 1 and person 2. Person 1 rushes into the decision, maybe because they don't have the right data to look at, they're using gut feeling, and they start off on their journey, then they go this way, they go up here, they go down here, back, maybe they're a bit straight and narrow, and they get to their goal, okay? But what you want to be is the person that waits up here for a little bit, waits up here, gathering all the data to make a right decision, then makes the correct decision because they have data, and they can go as the crow flies straight to their goal. And because of that, they get there faster because they're ultimately making the right decision. They're being rational, not irrational, because they're able to use data to go ahead and actually make a data-driven decision, okay? Really, really important. So the 4th role here is a sales account manager. Now, this is somebody that's in a sales position, but not in the traditional sense. They're not focused on new business. They're not focused on closing deals, setting deals. They're not focused on new acquisition at all. They're focused on sales specifically for existing customers. Their sole job is to get upsells. It's to get renewals. It's to get referrals. It's to get reviews. And ultimately, increase LTV. The hardest thing you're going to go and do as part of an agency is go out there and get new business. If you double your LTV, quadruple your LTV, but ultimately still bring on the same amount of customers every month, A double in LTV will double the whole size of your company, even if you bring on the same amount of customers. If you quadruple your LTV, you will quadruple the size of your business if you bring on the same amount of customers. It really is that simple. And the simplest way that you're going to do that and increase LTV is to get more money out of current customers. So let's say you offer Facebook ads to clients. Selling that same customer on Google Ads to double their monthly fee with you is huge upside. Renewals, okay? Getting them from a 3-month agreement onto a 6-month agreement or a 12-month agreement. Renewing them into longer term contracts is absolutely essential to increasing retention and therefore increasing LTV. Referrals, how can we get more money out of the same customers that we might not have otherwise received from ads or cold outreach, however you're currently acquiring business, right? Referrals. Reviews, how can we get reviews so we can ultimately use that as social proof to go out and get new customers? We have a sales account manager whose sole responsibility is this. They actually are also responsible for delinquencies as well, which is collecting cash on clients that are overdue payments that are currently going delinquent. So with this in mind, how does the role work? Well, very simply, this role, the key part of this is it's a very proactive role. So trust me, we have tried the closers being responsible for upsells. We've tried the actual account manager that's doing the delivery for clients to be focused on upsells. We've never really found that either of those systems or strategies work. Mostly because the sales rep should be focused on new business. The actual account manager who's doing delivery, the delivery person should be focused on getting the best possible results. They also likely don't have the skill set that this requires. So we found that having a role and a person specifically responsible for this who's really proactive, and from day one, they get introed, is their right-hand man that's going to be there for any questions they have, for support, if anything's going wrong, if there's any issues, that they're their port of call. So what happens is day one, they reach out, hey, welcome to the business. If you need anything, I am here for you. Day 7, hey, I just want to check in. How's everything going with your current account manager? How are you finding the experience? How's the onboarding process been? Day 14, same again. Just wanted to do another check-in. How are you, how's everything going? Are you still enjoying the experience? Day 30, and then basically after that, we do every 30 days, 60, 90, etc. Okay? Just a check-in to allow a safe space for customers to come back to us and say, hey, I'm really not having a great experience, or I'm loving it. And these basically act as activation points then for a couple of things. If a client turns around and says they're having a fantastic experience, that's a great upsell opportunity, or even a renewal opportunity, or an opportunity to ask for a review. If a client turns around and says they're not happy, it allows the opportunity for them to jump on a call and deal with that situation before they end up churning. So often I see issues where clients will churn, even though they'll be seeing on the surface, it will look like they're super happy, they're overjoyed with the experience. And then a week later, you get a message to say that they're leaving, and you're just like pulling your hair out, wondering why. Well, oftentimes clients don't like to tread on the toes of the person that's trying to help them. They don't like that confrontation. They don't want to be rude. They don't want to ruin that relationship. So they just let it fester and fester and fester under the service until one day too much slippage has happened and they just leave. This person allows it to be an escalation, a safe space to open up where they can give honest feedback on their account manager, who they're dealing with, and know that we're able to proactively deal with that situation before it gets out of hand and they even leave. Too many of you guys right now are probably really reactive to your churn, like clients leave and then you maybe have a feedback loop and do something about it, but that's after the fact. You want to try and catch these things early, okay? So that creates the opportunity to obviously deal with issues before they actually escalate, but even the opportunity to downsell. We have a done with you offering. Sometimes clients don't get the results that they're desiring on the done for you service. So we just downsell them onto done with you until we can get them back up to a stage. Maybe we consult on their funnel or their website. We consult them until we can eventually escalate them again into the done for you service. So yeah, all in to say that this creates a fantastic opportunity for renewals, upsells, and ultimately the core responsibility and KPI of this person is LTV increase, okay? This changed our business, by the way, so I highly recommend that you do that. So the fifth and final person that I hired that allowed us to scale to 700K a month and fully replace myself is head of sales. So right now, so many of you are probably still either taking sales calls or you are managing sales team. You are, reviewing calls. You're coaching. If you find yourself doing this, a head of sales is going to be absolutely key. You've got two options here. If your sales team is big enough, you've got big enough of a department, you can just hire somebody strictly in a management position to oversee all of the sales team, okay? If that's you right now, you're leading daily team huddles, you're watching every single call replay, you're ramping new starters to KPI, hiring, all of that stuff, you might need somebody who's strictly in a leadership position for this. If you're a little bit smaller and maybe you've only got a handful of reps, maybe you've got 2 or 3 reps, the other alternative you have is just to promote one of your best performing reps into a head of. So they still take calls, they still operate on, a decent call volume, but they just have a bit of a mix of a role where they're still then basically a senior sales rep where they oversee making sure the other reps are doing their end of day reports, they lead the daily sessions in the morning, they lead the coaching and things like that. There's a couple of ways in which you can do this, but if you find yourself heavily in that position right now, you need a head of sales. If you're still taking sales calls yourself, you need a sales rep first, and then you can go into head of sales afterwards. But if you've got 2, 3 plus sales rep, you need to be looking at least bringing somebody in that's not you to oversee this. So they can then focus on reviewing sales calls, providing feedback, ramping to KPI, ensuring follow-ups being done, ensuring end of day reports are being done, and things like that. Sales is, one of the most important parts of the business because, yes, I said, the first part of growing an agency, which is key, and the most important that people don't speak about, is increase in LTV. The second piece of the puzzle is new acquisition. Because if you 2x this and you 2x this, you 4x the size of your business, okay? So if you're doing 100K a month right now, if you double this and double this, you'll do 400K a month, okay? Those are essentially the only 2 levers that you need to focus on when growing an agency. And if you're spending loads of time yourself on managing the sales team, obviously you're not going to be able to then focus on, LTV, retention, systems, hiring the right people to allow for scale. So this is another thing that once I pulled myself out of sales, I hired somebody that was better at sales and better at management than me. So I'm replacing it not only with somebody that can do it and to save my time, but they're actually going to do a better job. And then basically it frees up all of the capacity to allow for scale. But if you guys hire, you might not need all 5 right now, but at different stages in your journey, you're going to need these 5. The best technique for you is to just do the ESAD technique. So you basically want to do a full-time audit of yourself. And then if you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing at all, eliminate it first of all, get rid of it, okay? If you can automate it with AI after the fact, definitely automate it. You probably want to build a bit of a better system for it to then go over and be delegated. But you just focus on whatever's taking up the most time for you right now, or what you dislike the most, essentially, which is like, if you're disliking it the most, it's draining you, causing you to potentially burn out. That's also a good reason for it. But do a simple time audit and then just work yourself down. So you might be like, okay, first and foremost, I'm spending 30 hours a week doing like personal stuff. So I'm going to hire a house manager, okay, first of all, because I'm only spending 5 hours a week managing my sales team, okay? But second of all, I'm spending like another 20 hours a week on dealing with client headaches and team headaches. So I'm going to hire a head of delivery, a head of operations. Third of all, it's sales, okay? And you basically just prioritize this list. You will hire in a different order based off of where you time audit yourself and what you see off the back of that. Hope you enjoyed this. If you want my personal help, you want me to help you on a deeper level, on a one-to-one level, whatever it may be, you want further support, you want to break past your bottleneck, you finally want to turn this headache that you feel like you're having right now running this agency into bliss. You want to be able to scale, have more profit. You want to be able to remove yourself from that. Check out the links in the description. We'll see how I can help you on a deeper level. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.